Hello everyone, DM Johnny here from Dungeons & Dice, and today I'm going to tell you how your players can ascend to godhood, or your NPCs, or whatever, if you're trying to get someone to ascend to godhood in D&D. Let's get started. There's no real official way in 5e or any of the older modules that I could see. Maybe Strahd. Anyways, there's no official way to ascend to godhood. It's one of those things where they're like, leave it up to the discretion of the DM. However, I am currently playing Dragonlance, and that gives a pretty prime example of how you could almost achieve godhood without actually achieving godhood. Now I know Dragonlance is not technically Faerun, so there's a little bit of difference, different deities and all that stuff, but it's official module, so I'm going to assume it's pretty similar. All right, so the first step to ascending to godhood is that you need some sort of relic from a god. And the example they give for Dragonlance is the Discs of Mishakal, which I probably didn't pronounce right, but these, as it's explained in the lore, was given to the humanoids to fight off the ogres in Dragonlance. It's the only way they could compete. Ogres used to run the world apparently, and then they gave it to them, and it's like, boom, they freed themselves from the ogres. Yay, thanks gods, and now they have these extremely powerful items. This one is from Paladine, or Paladine, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but this is like the deity of goodness in Dragonlance setting. So they had these items, they used it to defeat the ogres, and kind of stored it from there. Now we got to fast forward a bit, because after the humans defeated the ogres, they started civilizing, building up and everything, and the sort of center of Dragonlance became this place called Ishtar. And Ishtar is, in the Dragonlance campaign, gone. It's wiped out because of man's attempt to reach godhood. But it's worth noting that Ishtar was actually ruled by a series of king priests. Basically, these these kings that almost were like living deities on Earth. That's the way they viewed themselves, anyways. But they were also, they encouraged religion, they encouraged technology and things like that. I'm going to read you a little bit of a blurb on what they say about Ishtar here. Ishtar came to be ruled by a series of king priests. So you already know that the kings of Ishtar already kind of believe themselves, let's be honest, kings probably think themselves deities on Earth anyways, but these guys literally called themselves king priests. And they declared Ishtar the center of the world. Under their leadership, Ishtar declared war on actions, peoples, even the thoughts that the king priests considered evil. So, I'm right, you're wrong, I don't care what you say, I'm right, basically. They became increasingly rigid and theocratic, which I believe is like religion. There's that religious oligarchy. Well, anyways, and the last of these god priests, or king priests, which was Baldinus Pilofero. Why not? By the time you play Dragonlance, for the record, Ishtar's been gone for like over 300 years, so all this stuff is just background lore. But he undertook even more audacious magical feats. There's no real prime examples, but culminating in a ritual to attain godhood and rule Krynn forever in the name of good. And then eventually the gods acted. So yeah, basically these guys were like, hey, we're doing everything right. We're already gods on Earth. You know what? Why don't I join Palatine up in the heavens and become an actual deity? And they started doing these rituals and using their sort of influence in the city of Ishtar, which was very technologically and religious, everything, advanced magic, everything. And because of that, they figured they could sort of, the last king priest here, Baldinus here, he thought like he could break through, basically brute force it. So what he did was he thought he could use the discs. He could use the discs to perform a ritual, sort of like, I don't know, like 50, clerics, 50 paladins, artificers, all the magical stuff in this grand circle in this elaborate cathedral or whatever they had over there on Ishtar. And basically using these discs, he could, sort of circle himself with it and have this power from these discs infused into him, basically, is what he thought he could do. Obviously, there's going to be some people that don't like this. One of them is Lord Sooth, and he's actually got a pretty tragic backstory. He fails. In fact, it seemed like, I don't know, I haven't quite read it fully, but it seemed like he just straight up failed willingly. So While he did fail, some other individuals were like, no, we're going to stop this. We're going to put an end to it. They go in, they like, we're going to get the king priest. We're going to bring him down. Didn't happen. They got taken out, thrown into jail, prison if they didn't get killed. And then one of the last guys that was there, he did get thrown into jail, but he was helped out of it. And when he left, he took the lasts of the discs with him. And that was the key. This magical Palatine good power artifact was really the key to ascending to godhood. Now, the gods at this point had already sort of sent people to stop the king priest. They're like, hey man, this ain't looking good. Without the disc, how am I gonna put it? He didn't have the power of the gods, right? So he could not ascend. But again, he was already trying to brute force his way in there, and he was already so close. So what do you think happened? Well, he went forward. He was going to go forward with the ritual anyways. It was a long ritual, and basically the gods were like, okay, man, like we really want you to stop, and we're trying to make you to stop without just totally crushing you. And they sent 13 warnings. And I'm going to read them verbatim because they're pretty cool. As a last effort to avoid mass destruction, the gods sent 13 warnings, a series of signs meant to deter the king priest. Trees wept blood, fires raged on naturally, and cyclones struck the gleaming temple of the king priest, which you figure would be a pretty good dang sign that you're not going to ascend to godhood, so maybe you should chill out. But whatever. The gods also warned a few chosen mortals, reasoning that if any of them reached Istar and prevented the ritual, the world might not be beyond redemption. That's Lord Sooth and a few of the other Knights of Solamnia. They failed. Still, even after all of this, Belendinus, the king priest, was like, well, it sucks I don't have the discs, but I'm going to go ahead and, I'm just going to demand godhood. That's literally what they say he did. He was like, I don't need the disc. I don't need them. My ultimate goal is to become a god, and I'm just going to demand it. I've been running Istar. It's this holy center of the earth. Like, make me a god, basically. And the gods were like, okay, bud. Okay. And so the gods responded naturally with this. A mountain of fire fell from the sky, destroying Istar. If you look at Dragonlance after the Cataclysm, that's what this was called, it's just completely different. The map's completely changed, like everything's all broken up. There's just now this sort of like, there's massive continents, but a bunch of different islands too. The entire world was shifted by this. And it's not the best way to get to godhood, right? Obviously he failed. But we do have a couple of good clues on how to get it. First off, don't be a dickhead. If the gods say you're not going to get it, I mean, maybe one god, maybe you want to do Final Fantasy style and you kill a god and you become a god, but you need some sort of artifact of magical power, straight up. Something blessed by a god to reach godhood. And you also need a lot of magical power and some sort of temple and a lot of religious power and all. This is unrealistic for a player. Let's be honest with each other. But it still gives us a couple of good clues on how we could do it if we wanted to. So if your player is like, hey, I'd like to sort of like become a lesser deity by the end of this campaign, well, maybe one of your quests can be like, they need to fight through some sort of hard dungeon to get, I don't know, let's just use Tiamat. Tiamat's bad. Let's use Bahamut for an example. They got to go through this like dragon temple and eventually they get scaled Bahamut. Just like that. And it's like, well, there's still power radiating from that and you can use it, maybe use it as like your catalyst or whatever. I'm not the DM here, you guys are. So you can definitely make it if you want. I mean, it's a stretch. This is something I would do, like, what's your post-game plan? Okay, well, we can make that work. We'll work through it during the campaign, but you're not being a deity in my campaign. Anyways, there are other methods, not as effective, but technically you can reach godhood. The Dark Gifts. This is a part of Curse of Strahd, which I am planning to run sort of a hardcore mode here of that relatively shortly after I finish up with Dragonlance, so I've been reading that. The Dark Gifts granted Strahd immortality, which doesn't mean godhood, I understand that, but when Barovia became its own pocket dimension, he sort of became the god of Barovia. And I mean, players can kill him and all that, like players can kill gods, to be fair, but the thing about it is, the reason I think it's like a semblance of godhood from this is the fact that when a player tries to use, augury, divine intervention, basically the spells or skills that have you directly communicate with your god, while you're in Barovia, they connect to Strahd. And it's like, is he blocking it? I don't know. Like he is the god of Barovia. I mean, literally, minor spoiler here for Strahd. Literally, it says at the end of the Strahd campaign, like, it doesn't matter if your players beat them. Basically, the objective of Strahd is to beat him and get out of Barovia, because Strahd is the land. Strahd is Barovia. He comes back. Like, he cannot die. So the dark gifts are technically a way to become a god. You just have to become like sort of a god of a much smaller dimension, basically. But still really cool, something you could actually, like, that's actually useful information, right? He made a pact with some sort of dark being, not even, like, they don't even necessarily say who it is, and he becomes a vampire as a result. So like there has to be some sort of like transformation within the individual for this to work. But dark gifts, you're like, the way I look at it is like outer gods, right? Like Cthulhu, the black sheep, things like that. The goat, I'm not the sheep. Things like that. And like, yes, I can make you into a god, but it's my vision of a god, and it's going to not be exactly what you think. So maybe something like that. Maybe you do the light gifts, actually. And I do have a couple of things that I looked up from the older editions, because I typically try to look through all the editions to see if there's any way to do it. And in 4th edition, we have got it's called Divine Power. I actually think I've used a grenade from this in one of my magic item lists. Anyways, again, it's not a direct, like, hey, this is how you become God, but it actually has what is called epic destinies. And in this, you sort of like, you follow in the footsteps of a god or underneath a god. And like the examples it gives, like, you become an avatar of death, or an avatar of war, hope, freedom, or any other deity, you know, trickster, whatever it is. You are basically working your way into lesser godhood. An avatar for this individual, and then perhaps after, you know, your time on Earth, or Faerun, whatever you want to call it, passes, you ascend to a lesser god, and then you can jump up from there. Reaching direct, like, oh my god, deityhood, there's a freaking bee, man, just flying all around. Reaching direct godhood, this isn't the method to do it. But if you're willing, slow and steady wins the race, this isn't bad. An avatar of death, basically. And how I would do it is like, hey, sometimes in certain situations, maybe you get this little thing in your head, like, hey man, like, I'm an avatar of death. Well, these three, like, they're ready to go this week. Maybe you just take care of them for me here. Something like that. Or of hope, for instance, right? You're like, okay, well, there's hope. These people are down in the dumps. Give them hope. Build them a freaking house. I don't know. You can think of it as you're going. Again, your players have got to want to do it, but avatars of certain things, pretty cool. Hopefully this video kind of helped you think, okay, you know what, I could do that. And yeah, that'll work for me. Find a magical item that was blessed by a deity that literally helped people raise up against their freaking oppressors. Okay, now we need to find some holy, super holy, sacred temple of something, you know, Temple of Artemis, or Oracle at the Delphi, whatever it is, you know, and then we got to do a little ritual, give you a bunch of magic, divine power, and communicate with God, make sure this is even good with the gods. And then, hey, if they're not going to throw a freaking mountain of fire down on top of us, we'll become a deity. But anyways, I hope you like that video. I like doing these videos. I just like learning in general about, especially the older D&D modules, because I joined at 5e. So looking at these other ones, pretty cool, especially when you look at like older Strahd stuff. Anyways, that will do it for me. Hey, if you like magical items and lore and all that stuff, and you know, go check out our Patreon. $1 a month gets you access to most of our stuff and all of our magical items. If you are a Patreon, thank you. I appreciate it. $5 patrons are on the board right now. I think next we will probably do Lich, because I'm very curious on how you become a Lich. Anyways, that'll do it for me. If you liked what you saw, got what you needed, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys in the next video. Later, Gators.